What's up, everyone, and thank you for joining me on this episode of In the Trenches. Our guest today is a 23-year-old young buck from South Tennessee. He's a photographer whose work for Jelly Roll caught my eye. Our conversations of film, analog, painting was really fun. I can't wait for y'all to hear it. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you're digging the content. Let's jump right now into it with Peyton Dollar. Whoa.
I'm late, so and I'm so sorry.
No,
man, I'm
man,
usually
it's
never
good.
late.
I don't even know what we just stepped right into this thing like bam. Get in that hot seat now. Shit. I would have so much fucking anxiety. It would take me 20 minutes if I were you to be like, holy shit, where am I?
It would take a second.
Well, thank you for coming in, dude. That's really kind of you to come in on a kind of a cold winter day. You know? So are you from Nashville?
So I grew up like an hour south of here.
Okay, so you're a Tennessee boy then.
Yeah.
All right, cool. South. So that means what town was that?
Lewisburg, Columbia.
Lewisburg. I think I'm shooting soon there. I can't mention who I'm shooting there, but I'm shooting there. Yeah.
Lots
yeah.
of good scenes down
Yeah,
there.
it's gonna be a unique location that's there.
Nice.
What brought you to Nashville?
Music and photography, man. I moved to the city like 6 years ago, 2 weeks after I graduated high school. And never really looked back. So
Really?
yeah.
So was photo always the goal?
Always the goal.
Really?
Yeah.
What was it about photography that you're like, when you're young, you're picking like well, for me, it was like I knew art and stuff like that.
Yeah.
A lot of my friends were like in bands, and I would sit there and I just was like, oh my God, grab the mic, I'm like, But I figured out that I was watching the fashion of it all and, the angles and the lights. What was it about you that drew you to photography?
So I started like taking photos on my iPhone when I was like 13. I'm 23 now.
23.
So,
You're a
yeah.
baby.
I know.
That's low, man. Shit.
I know.
I'm like the Gandalf now. All of a sudden, I'm like, give me my cane, young boy. Shit.
So I started doing that, and whenever I first started, like people were telling me that like I needed to like pursue it as a career, and like when I first started, I actually didn't want to pursue photography as a career. I was like, nah, like it's just not practical, and about 2 years later, I finally got my first camera, which was gifted to me from like one of my mom's mutual friends.
Isn't
And
that
they were
funny?
like,
It's always that way, right?
yeah.
My father gifted me this camera. That's cool.
Like circles back around.
Yeah, right. Paying it forward.
Yeah. So then I just started, taking photos of my friends in school. Like it turned into like a whole thing that I was doing. Like people were like noticing like back at home. And then I got in touch with some producers that were working in like the hip hop industry here. And they really liked my work. They were also around the same town as well.
Oh, okay.
And
I was gonna say, what was the in? You knew the similar growing up, small town kind of thing. Huh?
Yeah. And they were making moves up here. So they kind of brought me along, and I started meeting people. And by the time I was 16, 17, I was up here like all the time, meeting people, doing things, shooting shows. I snuck into a lot of shows before I was 18.
That's awesome. So did I. That's great.
Yeah.
That's it. You just have that. Well, the thing I say a lot of times is what I'm noticing about what you're saying is you were doing it, you're really grinding young.
Yes.
And man, I'm telling you, there was a point where I was speaking to a lot of film schools around the country, and Full Sail was one of them. And there was like all these kids, and there was this common question was like, so how did you get to where you got so early?
Yeah.
Because I knew exactly what I wanted early.
Exactly.
So that you can grind proper. You can, you know what I mean? You can make those proper moves.
Well,
young.
I was like, I don't want to like not know and then wait until I'm like 23 to like figure out what I want to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now you're already shifting in fourth gear. You're moving.
Moving big.
I see your work out there. I see you moving. Yeah, no, it's I admire your work too. It's like I noticed a lot of similarities in your I guess your discipline of photography, mm, your discipline to slow down
Right.
and to you probably heard me say it. You kind of obsess about the four corners. You control what's in the four corners, whether that's just a shift in your weight to know that I can see that in your work,
Mhm.
and I also notice you're always looking at light too.
Extremely.
You know, I can
Light and
see. Yep,
composition,
I can see, and those are the two things I just said. And followed in a quick third second is your color, which I think is unique. I notice color, which is good. Your color is awesome and it's got different tonalities. Did you feel like do you feel like you're still, I don't know, figuring out your style? Or are you liking where
Absolutely.
you are? I mean, do you go into little kicks from I don't know, one shoot to the next or one year to the next?
I do. I find that the work evolves over time in a very interesting way,
Yeah,
and it might not even go in a direction that I want it to go in. It just
sure.
kind of it takes a world of its own, which I
Yeah.
find very interesting. Um, yeah.
What are some of your how what are some of your ways of you find to get inspiration for being a photographer? Do you do like street safari stuff? Do you ever like just shoot non people?
So I used to a lot. Now that I've kind of gotten a lot more professionalism, I feel
Sure.
like the fun stuff has kind of went down, quote unquote.
Yep, that's what I was getting at.
But I still do quite a bit of experimental stuff
Mhm.
too. Like last year, I started shooting digitally through like these old Kodak brownies. I would shoot through like the viewfinder, and then you would get like this very like textured feel about
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
I really like the work like that. I mean, it's not important to anyone else, but to me, they're like these breakthrough moments.
No, I see it. I see it.
Yeah.
And I also, I noticed that you enjoy painting.
Yes.
And I don't paint.
Mm.
Let me be very clear about that. But the man, I am like that's my guilty pleasure on Instagram, man. I get lost in painting, right?
Right.
And I saw that on your page and I see you're very interested in it. It made me think like, what is it about? And there's many other photographers that share a similar thing. Is it more just the imperfections of paint? Because like in photo, I find myself being a bit more of a perfectionist,
Mm.
right? And I wonder, because again, I don't paint, but I'm obsessed with it. Is it the imperfections and the sloppy or just letting go that you don't have in your photography?
It's so interesting how they're both so similar and
Hmm.
also both so different
Yeah.
too. It's like I feel like the years that I've spent being a photographer have made me a better painter because I'm
Mm.
able to see the composition within the rectangle,
Sure. Yeah.
But they're also very different too. Something that I've been saying a lot recently is that photography is a very extroverted art form.
Hmm.
To get the good work, you have to go out there on some level.
Hmm.
Whereas with painting, it's much more introverted, like it comes back down to me,
Sure.
not anyone else
Yeah.
necessarily.
And that can be a challenging place too,
Yes.
vulnerable place.
It's a process,
Yeah.
like sometimes I could spend 24, 36 hours on a work, and half of that is just sitting looking at it,
Mhm.
deciding what to do next. The
Mhm.
other half is like actually making the marks and deciding what I want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you find that it's important for you to have that outlet from your photography?
Absolutely. I'm a naturally introverted person,
Mhm.
so that those moments of introspection and decision on my part really help me bring something out and communicate
Yeah.
more, even more so than photography sometimes too.
Yeah.
Mm.
I noticed from your work, you have a and a lot of people have said about mine, so I notice it. You have a real um keen eye to photojournalism, right?
Yes.
And it makes me think for a second as I learn more about you, you're saying, you're more introverted. And I can see now, I'm like, waiting in the wing, in the shadows,
Right.
and there you are probably waiting like I do. I
Mhm.
wait
I do too.
and I'm waiting for the person to I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, turn your right,
It's
hit that light, hit
instinct.
to your right.
Yeah.
Yeah, pop, 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 you know what I mean?
Mm.
And there is a lot of control,
Right.
just like when you paint, you have a lot of control,
Mhm.
but it's alone and you're removed from the scenario, the moment, you're in the, and I love that.
Yeah.
That's the kind of photos I am always aiming to capture, and I
Right.
see it in a lot of your work. So, and a lot of that work I'm seeing recently or as of recent was a lot of the Jelly Roll.
Mhm.
So how did you get in contact with, how did you land into that position?
I was getting coffee one morning with someone, and I looked down at my phone, and he had just DM'd me, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to come finish out the rest of this tour with us?" This was 2023 Beautifully Broken tour. No, it wasn't Beautifully Broken. It was Backroad Baptism. And I was like, "Absolutely." Got in touch with his tour manager. The next day, I was on a flight, and that was that. Really, I mean, it was
Wow.
kind of bizarre, you know. I mean, looking back, it's just I don't know. I don't know.
You just got thrown right into it. So, no, I mean, but you've done some tours before that anyway. But was
Right.
that was some early Jelly? So like it was probably pretty. I mean, it's always pretty rambunctious, but
Mhm.
now he's very much on kind of like a good health kick, which is good.
Right, right.
What was it like out there? Was it pretty mayhem?
Yeah.
Good for photo.
Yeah, great for
Great.
photo, man. It's like a playground, you
Yeah.
know, and that was the first time that I had photographed an artist of that level,
Sure.
and also, I mean, physically, he's just so iconic, you
Yeah.
know, like, anything you take of him is going to have some sort of underlying
It
meaning and
does.
emotion,
It
you know?
does. Uh-huh.
So I just feel like everything that I took of him was just like, I don't know, it was just all it was good. It was the first time I had worked with like a huge stage and pyro and
Pyro. Yeah.
the circus.
Even band members that can complement your frame, that are doing right moves or just looking
Yeah.
right. It all was working for your frame, right?
Yeah. And I mean there's an energy from the crowd that
Mhm,
kind of seeps into the
mhm.
photo and
Sure.
how the artist is performing, and it all I don't know, it just all came together in a
Yeah.
way.
It's interesting that that come together and that I don't know
Yeah.
is I understand that. It's
It
and you know it when
right.
you've captured it. Um, and it's awesome that you were able to kind of experience that on a big level.
Yeah.
So now when you have that feeling, you
Mhm.
know what that's like, and you can now chase that into your other work,
Right.
right? And kind of know if you've hit that thrall or not.
Mhm.
You're like, I'm not feeling the same.
Yeah.
What is it? Is it the artist? Is it me? Is it, do you get like that? Are you kind of, I don't know, in tune to all the little attributes that make the photo yours?
The energy, yeah, like, the energy is, like, it's always different, and, like, with shows and even, like, different artists too, it's like, some days I feel really great and I can get really great stuff, and other days when a lot of stuff might be going on, but I can't feel the energy, it's like it doesn't necessarily fall through, it could just always be better, or I've done better than that before, if
Hmm.
that makes any sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. It's like, asking a songwriter to enter the room with his boys and say, "Don't leave until you have the next number one."
Yeah.
I mean, we'll try. That's the goal. But I mean, do you ever feel that pressure that you have to um, capture quantity over quality, or are you able to like position yourself to where look, this is what I do, and you know,
When I started doing a lot of the tour stuff or in any of the music stuff, I was very much like quantity.
hmm
You know, that's what's important. But now, 4 years later, it's like I think the quality is what's most important. And knowing how to edit the work down to its bare essentials,
there you go.
I think it makes the work more impactful and more powerful
Yeah, the
rather than
refinement.
here's a lot of, random moments. Some of them are great, some of them not so much. What do they really need?
Yeah, if you remove 8 of the 10
Mm,
and you're down to 2 and 2 only live, now it's just like that's what it is.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Too much is you lose the mystique and the allure, and it just becomes kinda like, cool. like you got every angle,
Exactly.
you know?
I think it's more impactful that way though. Like I think the work needs to be edited down.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely. But the Instagram, unfortunately, and all that need carousels and stories and stuff.
I was just about to say in this overstimulated world we live in, you know?
you're forced to kind of, at best, hit them with qu- quantity of quality.
Right.
Now that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Do you feel that need, or you just kind of do you?
I just kind of do me,
That's great. I
man.
do the same thing.
I've always been the person to just follow my own path and do whatever I felt was right to do,
Absolutely.
you know.
That's awesome. Are you with regard to photo, where's the height? Where do you want to go? Where's the summit? Is it tours? Is it where do you see yourself going in photo?
I feel like photo is kind of turning more into like a creative direction route
Mm,
almost, where it's not just about the photo anymore. It's about everything else. It's about the environment, what I'm choosing to create, and also who else is involved in that too. As far as me being out on tour, that's kind of went down a little bit just because I've been doing it for a couple of years and
mhm.
I kind of do need to take some time at home.
Sure.
And you mentioned my work is like a lot. It's in the realm of photojournalism, but also I like to step in and have
Mhm.
that, creative control and freedom too,
Yes.
which is something that I can do here at home in the studio, on
Mhm.
location.
Mhm.
I do like to have stuff planned out. I like to make my mood boards and have a plan at the same time too.
Okay. That was where I was going with it. Do you see yourself growing into being more, you know, production, let's call it more production, where you have a team to build rather than following the circus and capturing those. I mean, it's nice to have both.
Yeah.
That's where I kind of live in my lane,
Mhm.
um, to be able, because at any given time when you're controlling shoot after shoot after shoot, and that wears on you. You're like, man, I just want to kind of vibe out and capture moments. And then you do that, and you're like, man, I gotta get off the road and go, you know.
It's an artist thing,
Yeah,
man. It's like
yeah.
I feel like I always need to commit to one thing,
Hmm.
but then somewhere down the line, I'll just be like, maybe that's not the case,
So you're all in then. You're black and white. Like when you're into something, it's all in. And it's tough. I'm saying it's tough to kind of dabble,
It is because
because your energy is all in one.
I get really obsessive about things too because I want to make the best possible work that I
Mm.
can make,
Mm.
and if I feel like I'm on the edge of that, going through a breakthrough moment, then it's like it's really hard for me to just stop.
Sure. Do you have a particularly favorite photo or two that you know you speak highly of, you speak highly of?
There there's one moment it was with Jelly Roll. We were at MSG. We're backstage, and I mean the room is probably like half this size. There are like 25 people in there, and we're sitting on the couch just like that. It's him and I next to each other, and he someone brings in this box of goods, and you know, he looks over to me and hands it to me, and we're both having the
Sure.
goods together.
Yeah, that's good.
And I have my camera with me, and then I give it back to him, and then he kind of leans back and he looks at me, and then I lean back too, and I take the photo, and I look at it. He's got it, and it's there's a look in the photo. I don't know what it is,
Mhm.
but there's something there. And I mean, for me, a couple of years will go by and I'll look at a photo and I'm like, ah, it was good at the time, but it's kind of faded a
Sure.
little
Oh,
bit.
yeah.
But there are some photos.
Stand the test.
That's one of the ones for me where I'm just like I look at it every time and I'm like, it's still alive.
Yeah.
It has something it needs to say.
Yeah, I love that you're saying, I like the way you describe it. It's funny, I have a similar story with the Jelly Roll, where I was in the studio with him and Yellow Wolf, and we go into I go into the mic booth with him, and it's a small mic booth,
Mhm.
and to get vibey, he got vibey, and the photos are great, and we're both vibing, and
There's a
Vibing. It's
there's a conversation,
yeah.
there's an unspoken conversation going on
Sure.
there. You know, I don't know how
Sure.
to describe it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's intuition, if it's an instinct. I
Yeah.
don't know, but
My
that's what makes it magical.
that is, and it feels alive still to this day. And yeah, it's just a good story with it, you know.
Yeah.
It's important. Do you um do you see yourself kind of leaning into the fine art of photography at all?
I,
Prints and selling your work or that kind of world?
I am. I think
Because you are in the painting.
I am into
So it's
painting.
like, why wouldn't the photos be gallery, and sell your work from that standpoint, maybe?
I think my work outside of the touring world, any of my street and travel work, I think there's potential for things to be printed there, but I feel like someone would buy one of my paintings to put in their house before they would a photo.
Mm-mm, you just opened up a can of worms. Why? Why?
Yeah.
Why would you think that? What is one over the other? Now I'm gonna break that down. That's what I was looking for.
I think I think the photos are powerful. I think they work. They could work in a house, but
Mm,
I think sometimes the paintings have more to say. You know, like with my painting work, I feel like people are more willing to sit there for 10 or 15 minutes and look at it and dissect it rather than one of my photos. You know, like they'll see, I don't know, maybe a photo of Jelly Roll and they're like, it's a photo of Jelly Roll. It's the content of the photo, not necessarily the photo itself.
mhm.
Whereas with the painting, I feel like it's about the painting. It's coming from my
Yeah,
place.
there's an investment of you. There's some investment of you in that
Exactly.
work.
Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, I appreciate realism, but I also I love the abstraction too, being able to
Mm.
see what is and isn't there, or maybe you're pulling a different meaning to it than I would, you know? Like it's just the painting leaves room for interpretation, whereas the photo I feel like is just so black and white.
Has the art form and the freedom of painting helped you change your perception of your work as a photographer?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I could tell.
Yeah.
Just what you just said. I was hoping you would say that. Thought you would. Explain that if you could.
When you, the decision making in painting, it's carried out over a large amount of time
Mhm.
because I spend a lot of time on my painting work. But then I feel like all those decisions, you know, with photo, it's instant. So it's like all those decisions that I would spend on a painting are suddenly like all being made in an instant with the photography, if
Mhm.
that makes sense.
Mhm. But does it if you were like in your photo studio,
Right.
now when you're in a photo studio, it's all up to you and the lighting and what emotion or what you can bring out of
Mm.
your talent. That seems to me you've got way more skin in that game, or you're able to flex a bit
Yeah.
more in those. That's where I can see you having that part of your style, your skill set.
Right. I think take being able to take risk is important too. Because in
Hmm.
painting, you know, it's like I might have a really great idea, but it's either a really great idea because it's risky, or it's a really bad idea because it's
Hmm.
risky. And I think being able to be decisive and knowing the difference between the two it can be a really big deal, you know?
Hmm. Does one being the photography being more of a, let's call it a livelihood,
Mm.
does that affect how you craft or how you look at it versus the painting, where maybe it hasn't caught up as much, I don't know, to your revenue of photography,
Mm.
because that does change it when commerce gets involved with photo and other people. Now they're paying for it and now they have needs, like we were saying. Well, they might want, you know, a gallery of pictures, and you're like, well, yeah, here's your 12,
Yeah.
but no, we want so it's like there is this need to feed the machine a bit more in the photo side of things
Right.
versus painting,
Mm.
right? So I would think that the painting, getting into that and just being consumed by that would trickle back into the photo
Yeah,
in a healthy
absolutely.
way.
Yeah, yeah. Right now I'm in this because the painting is I've always I've always drawn, like I've always kind of dabbled in stuff, but I've never gotten to the point where I am now where I've got these huge 84 by 36 canvases that I'm working on. I
Hmm.
mean, they're huge and it's just it's a totally different process and I'm very obsessed with it right now.
I could imagine. Now,
Um,
when you get into it though, are you going into? I feel like, did you get it? Are you going into painting with the same vivacity, veracity as you did photography? Meaning, did one help you learn to go into, maybe I learned what I didn't want to do with paint with photography. I'm not going to screw up on this paint. I'm not going to get in my own head. I'm going to blah. Did you know what I mean? Because you know what I mean?
mm,
You've learned things in your photography, in the business, and all the things that you are doing
right.
to then carry that over into a new art form. You want to be careful you don't taint it with the poison, or is it you do want to learn from the business side and bring it in? Where are you at with that?
As far as like the evolution kind
Yeah,
of
or just
goes,
how you're getting into painting. Are you getting into it with more freedom because you've unlocked something with your photography when you got into that? It's like
mm,
you're older now, so therefore, you've learned things. Are you growing from those things as you jump into painting?
absolutely. Yeah. But also the painting is such a different process too because kind of going back to conversation, it's like a conversation between me and the canvas and it's not always about what I want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
It could be telling me what it wants, but I also have to kind of fight back too. It's like trying to figure out the resolution, like does it make sense? Whereas with photography, with the digital world anyways in photography, it's not the same. Last year, I started developing and scanning and shooting all my own film.
Mm.
That was kind of the precursor to this painting
I see.
situation.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now that makes sense. There's a middle block that is not so void. That's a
Yeah.
big jump, and I'm looking at it from my own standpoint. I used to shoot film, so I'm not going back to that, but not with a family and kids. I'm like, oh my lord, what are you shoot? I saw that you're shooting some Mamiya, right?
Yes,
That's the
sir.
one. I
Six
mean,
by seven.
get it. That's it. That's it. That's the stuff, man. But it's the chemical. It's the experimentation. It's not knowing per se. It's
Mm.
all that mystery that film gives. It's so fun.
It's different too because you're making something.
Hmm.
You're taking a blank strip, putting stuff on it, and then making it turn into something.
Yeah, you're really slowing down too.
Yeah, I learned a totally new process with that. It wasn't, let's go shoot 2,000 photos, hurry back to Lightroom, cull everything like 3 times, and then drop it in a Dropbox folder in 3 hours. That's not what it is.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's taking time with it, feeling it out, making it, and it's a process. And then the more I learned about processes, the more I got into painting, and I'm like, oh, like this is like the process,
Hmm.
you know?
What if it is your process that you now know you need, you like? Can you implement that into your digital? It's
Mm,
just your process.
right.
See, yeah, it is a different way to receive the photo, but there are elements to that process that you engage in, you're in with
Mm,
film that you can apply back to digital.
right.
Is
But
that something you've been
yes,
doing?
but only I would have only gotten to that point through doing film, though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's I mean, would you recommend a lot of people who are getting into photo, who are digital, go, hey, you might want to go. What would you say about that? It says, hey, some film is eye opening.
Start ASAP because it'll change everything. And I think it going back to quantity and quality, my digital output now is much more careful and considered.
Mm,
I'm I've always waited for the moment, but now it's like I'm really waiting for it. I'm not going out and snapping 1,500, 2,000 photos for a show or event. Now I might only do 3 or 400
sure.
because it's like I don't need all of that fluff. I
Mhm.
it's just need to pay attention to what you're doing
Less is more.
ultimately.
Less
Yeah.
is more. And I'm sure getting into it wasn't all foolproof. You probably screwed up a bunch of roles,
Yeah.
costly, time, disappointment, emotional, and then you had to suit back up, feed that camera, and go do it again.
Yeah.
Right? There's something to that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's the same with painting too. It's like, you mess up, but the fact that you're able to get back up and go into it and
Mhm.
keep going and going and going is what really makes a difference.
It's everything.
Yeah.
It's everything. Now, I'm sure this has come across your desk or in your brain for sure, but we've talked a lot about, photography and the art of it and painting and art of that. You can't help but to I can't help but to wonder, are you dabbling in or being, pushed indirectly into video? Is motion something that or that is creeping into your creative brain or is being somewhat forced upon you nowadays as a photographer? So many photographers are having a struggle with just kind of being steadfast photographers.
Right.
you know um where do you lie?
I I have a really deep appreciation for video. I respect the people who do video. I think it's a hell of a job. Like it takes a lot. Like to me, video is the culmination of all things creative put into one.
Mm.
It's a visual idea. It's an audio idea. It's edited away. Like it all comes
Story,
together.
emotion, yeah.
Yeah, like it's all there. And I think for one person to do it all is a lot. But when you have like a whole production of people doing it, it becomes a lot easier.
Hmm.
But you have to work with people and get ideas from other people and negotiate and you know come to terms not just on your own but with other people, and I really appreciate that. But with my work, I really enjoy working alone.
Back to the introvert.
Back to the
Yeah.
introversion. um so video is something that I have dabbled in before, but I just don't think it's my thing. And
Mhm.
I've done my best to not force that into, you know, my practices.
Sure. Yeah.
Because it's not authentically me. It's not what I really want to be doing. And for me, if I'm not all in or extremely interested or not able to give it everything, I just don't want to do it.
Mhm. It's tough.
I have to really respect that artistic integrity and not just do something because, it's what's
Yeah.
popular right now.
That's good of you. That's strong of you. Now, same thing with film. Are you,
Mhm.
are you noticing that you have such a love for it? Is it something in your shoots, where do you kind of just bring the camera and maybe two rolls and you get what you get? Or are you trying to lead your vision with film?
I want to lead my vision with film. Like I imagine a fully analog workflow.
That's
Yeah.
awesome, Bo. So
Yeah.
how you got shit? Wow, that's awesome. You're okay. So now I'm getting a pure. Yeah, you're a purist. I love it. I love it. Well, I got right. Did you come in with shoes? Yeah. Okay. You're like a purist out there. I love it. I mean, do you have photo developing in your spot and all that?
Yep. All I've got, so there we have like this little mud room in our house. It's like right beside my room, and I never knew what to do with it.
Yeah.
And now it's turned into a photo lab. It's turned into a painting studio. It's turned into whatever it wants to be. Yeah, yeah. I've got the
Man, we
whole
should have
nine
done this
yards.
episode at his crib. In a red light, in
Yeah.
the red light, like yeah, with shit hanging and developing behind us. That'd be
Give it like a month, and we'll
Dang.
back with you.
that is
Part two.
part two. Will get me painting with your stuff. What were we saying? Shit.
Full
This
analog
video-
work.
Full analog. That's right. So full analog. How deep do we go with that? I mean, that you're still gonna do post, right? You're gonna do some But I mean, how much are you trying to do? Not that much in post, I guess.
It depends. I mean, post with film is a whole
Yeah,
other world,
it is.
because it's dependent on how well you scanned the film.
Yeah.
I do all my work with like I've got a Canon R5 with a 100 mm macro. I'll put it on a tripod. I got my light pad, and it's illuminated, and then I bring
Yeah.
it into Lightroom,
Okay.
and then I use a plugin called Negative Lab,
Oh,
and
okay.
then it converts the negative into a positive. But every time you do it, it'll give you a slightly different result. And of course, you can still tweak everything, but how much you really want to push it, kind of determines
Yeah.
how pure you want to keep it. Depending on the shoot and style, I try to keep it as minimal as possible. But if there are some exposure issues on my end, then I'm of course gonna correct for that.
Sure. No,
Because I mean,
you
the lab techs are making their own decisions too.
absolutely.
I think there's this idea that film is supposed to be untouched, but it's never really been
Never.
that way,
No.
ever.
No. 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 The thing that people don't understand too, and I used to only shoot film, and I
Mm.
mean shoot film, motion, film, photo,
Oh
everything,
gosh.
motion. So at a certain point, you're young doing it. You don't realize that you're just the director having fun,
Yeah.
right? And then there came a shift in the business where now I'm the production company,
Yeah.
right? And you're still stuck in that mentality. Film, we're not going to do that digital, right? And next thing you know, you're done shooting, and you're like, oh god, how's it gonna look? Is it all exposed right? We gotta wait.
The
You gotta,
lab
wait,
report.
you gotta wait for 4 days to get it to the lab. And then you're waiting another 3 days for them to do it, and then get the lab report. You're like, I gotta wait. I forgot. I gotta wait like 9 days. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
It's like you forget that.
Mm.
That, but there's something to live in that. I
Yeah.
remember pulling into telecine sessions and like seeing the film. First up, and you're like, dude, is this gonna be cool? And the DPs, you're just like, yeah. Just next thing you know, you're like, pops up beautifully. Like, oh my God, I would have so much anxiety if I was,
But there's so much validation there. It's like the bigger risk that you take, the bigger reward,
absolutely.
And not being able to see it immediately, it almost takes away from that attachment almost, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
You're not attached to it directly afterwards. And it's also not influencing what you're going to get next either. It's like, oh, well, we can check it and see. And then whenever we see it, that's going to kind of tell us what we need to do next. But without that entirely, it's like you're moving with intuition. And I really
Okay.
believe in that,
I see that in you. Does this, how has this been received amongst business types, the admin world, the suits with like labels and such? We've moved out of that era, and we're such in a speed and a now. And have you gotten pushback? Have you noticed, they want to support your vision? I know a lot of people who listen or watch the podcast are probably going to ask that question. Well, yeah, um,
I mean, I'm always going to encourage us to shoot on film. If that's something that they don't want, then that's totally fine.
yeah,
I
you're
have
cool just snapping.
yeah,
Yeah.
I have no problem with that. But then there are also like some other people, some management companies that like I'm working with right now. They have a very real interest in the film, and
Mm,
I mean, for my generation
cool.
too, I feel like the nostalgic way of things are kind of coming back a little bit, and people really appreciate that too. I think there's a sense of authenticity there.
Sure. Now,
know?
let me be clear, because I know I'm not speaking to you in this, 'cause I've seen your work. But there is a thing when people just get away with this thing shot on film. Like it's more than just shooting film.
Right.
You see, it's about shooting film, lighting for film, exposing it in a way, metering for film.
Yes.
It's not just, I got an emulsion,
Mm.
and that emulsion was film, so therefore it's film. It's pure. No, a monkey can do that.
Right.
It's called getting a fucking exposure.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying?
Totally.
Then so that's where I want to make sure that people, I agree with like film is so beautiful all the way through, but you know, I feel like the art of it, the craft
Right.
of shooting it it is kind of lost with just shooting film.
Well, I mean, that's the end result. But with film, the end result, I mean, it matters, but it also doesn't too. It's the process you went through. That's what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
Same goes for the paintings too. Like, it's not always about what ends up on the canvas. It's about the war you went through to get there.
I like that. I didn't think about that in that way.
So it's just it's a battle, you know.
It is. It is a battle. It is.
Yeah.
It's physical. It's a struggle.
Yeah.
That you don't really have. There's an ease with digital, and that ease is what we are in life now. We kind of just move through, and we're forgetting that inner battle with our art.
Yeah. I think people need to have that battle.
Yeah, and in that battle is the ownership.
It is.
It's that.
Yeah. You get
I
it.
like
You
that
get
shit.
it, man. You get it.
Yeah, I do get that. I mean, if you know a lot about me, trust me, I am your biggest supporter now. Yes, I think, but I just wanted to clarify because I'm always like seeing shot on film, and I'm always like rolling my eyes, like, okay, just shot on film. Like you're not validated because you just shot. You know, it looks like just some 16 millimeter just shot out the side. You know, like
Right.
light it. I mean, you see the DPs that are doing like motion film for their clients and their directors. You're like, yeah, they're doing it. They're lighting it. There's a few of them out there.
There's a way to do it.
Absolutely, and when you do it that way, and you can light film, beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because there's so many moving parts. And honestly, when film moved to digital, I fought it for a while. And
Well, what was that process like for you?
yeah, which process? Which the
Moving
transition
from film to digital.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'll speak mainly on the motion side of it. I was by the time digital was never in my realm. It was never a thing. It was Super 8, 16 mil, Super 16, 35, Super 35, right? So I want you to understand the process when you're young, and when you finally get to like 16 mil and you're shooting Super 16 and now your cameras are different and you're like, right? Then you start stepping up into that 35 game. Something comes over you, Bo. I mean, it's like, I've made it, right? So that's tough to get out of your DNA. When digital came and the red camera comes out, you're like, this ain't it.
Were you like, is this
I
illegitimate?
fought it. I didn't like it. And many of us did. I said it would never happen.
Wow.
Of course, it did. And of course, I shoot Alexa's. Hence, ask me how I feel about Bitcoin. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I've watched AOL. I've watched all these things go, no, it's not going to happen. Just, oh, you know, motherfucker, it happens. Okay? I've had it many times. Me saying no, and it does. But the process for me was fighting it. But also when it happened, digital cameras or red, they were heavy, they were clunky, they had air conditioning fans in it. If you bumped the back, it would turn off. It needed 3 minutes to turn on. You're rolling or not, and you can't hear, you know, everything was different.
Yeah.
There were takes, and at that time I was younger, so I'm shooting some of these things. I didn't know how to hold these cameras. We didn't have easy rigs back in the day. You know what I mean?
Right.
So a lot of things, then digital didn't have enough time in the red. Bam, before what? The DSLR 5Ds. And that came, so you're like, oh, now the heavy clunky to the quick jerky cameras that can give you this kind of weird, you know, shutter effect thing, right? So and film guys are sitting back going, what the hell, dude? That is like the wild, wild west of technology. Let's just stick to film, you know? So I fought it until really it was the Alexas came out. And I can see, and it's different. It's its own thing. I didn't like how the red cameras felt. Now, a lot of film guys, if you talk about digital, they'll say red is Fuji.
Mm,
Alexa is Kodak. Blah is Ilford, Kodachrome, whatever it is.
right.
You look at cameras as a different film stock.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Starts to give you, and then lenses are all help you do that. But for me, it was fighting it because I knew what I was doing in film I loved.
Mm,
And I saw the products of things along the quick evolution. It was fast. Everything was moving. And Alexa, waited a little bit,
mm.
airy. And when that came out, it was it for me.
It's kind of game over.
Yeah.
Not
'Cause
not to interject, what was your first video that you shot on digital?
Digital Shine Down Second Chance. It was a big video for them. And if I look back at that video, it was all locked off and felt wrong. But it was
Mm,
because just felt like it didn't have the emotion that I have now. Because with the advent
mhm,
of just the way I had to learn. I had to sit back, to be honest with you,
mhm,
man. I had to sit back and watch what was happening in the realm of film. I felt like because I did fight it and I was shooting film still while digital was going, I alienated myself of how digital was being shot. There was a whole change because now those cameras have crazy sensors.
Yeah.
You don't have to light as much. You're lighting softer. You're seeing through the shadows.
mm,
And I'm like, whoa, that is really pretty. I don't like it on that camera, meaning I don't like Fuji. I don't like it on that camera. I don't like the movement. There's something about that I like. Why? You know what I mean?
mm.
It was trying to match aesthetics of things that I wanted to see,
Yeah.
honestly. But that video, it was tough for me because it didn't have the movement that I really was. I have now come to appreciate. Now my lighting is much further out.
Mm,
Hell, to be honest with you, most of my motion now is minimal lighting, timing of day, proper placement in locations, free to move, blocking with my self camera and the talent.
mm.
I like it.
Yeah.
I love not being restricted. You see, the film, you're kind of boxed in. To light it properly, light film, you got to bring in that light. You go shoot out at that night on film with no light, you're gonna have a pocket of light in black.
There's no shadows. There's nothing there,
You see what I'm saying? So a lot of time you're putting light real close.
It's light hungry.
Light hungry.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that, bro. And so your framing is right to the edge. So that restricts a camera movement or blocking movement.
But
So open it up. I was just like, woo!
but there's also something creative in those limitations, though.
Very much.
That's what I find so interesting. Sometimes I like being limited, and other times I don't like being limited.
A lot of the time, though, in that film game, because you're moving from A to B,
Mm.
that those limitations cost a lot of money.
Mm,
Because if you're moving there, you got to broaden your light source or carry your light source further.
right.
Now to move lights, now you have for every 18K, you almost have someone manning that light or whatever. But now, I mean, with digital, I mean, you don't have to. I'm amazed half the time on some of my shoots where I'm like expecting in my mind, still thinking, where's the big Musco light? Right? It's like, dude, it's a few little lights, and you're like, damn. So and it was a little bit of a learning curve that I challenged.
Mm.
Do you get like that? Do you get comfortable in what you know? And that's me. And you get so good at it that there comes a point when your creative spirit is wanting to go further, but maybe your analytical side is saying, no, keep in the pocket. And there's that struggle. Eventually you do break through the mold and you go into the next thing. Are you like
That
that?
happens all the time, man. Like, because I
True
experience
artist, then.
a lot of resistance. It's like not knowing if I fully want to commit to that idea or decision. Or yeah, I don't know. It's just it's a war. Back to that.
Yeah. That's why it's funny because like in the trenches, it was something my father and I've always talked about. And it's funny. I said it, I think twice today in just talking. It always has felt like that, whether it's
Yeah.
in my head constantly, the business itself. It always felt like I was battling myself to get
Yeah.
what I wanted. And I think that's just being a true artist, to be honest with you. It's not easy.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is I question my artistry all the time, it's
Do you?
like, am I really an artist? And then other days I'm like, yeah, like I feel really great. It's just this constant tug of war.
Well, I mean, on the painting side, that's kind of what I was saying about 30 minutes ago, whatever. And I wonder if that's something that I'm drawn to with the painting
Mm,
is I'm learning because we started this conversation with like the four corners, and there's a level of control even in a non-controlled environment, but also that feeds into your OCD or your level of control.
right.
Painting to me, the way I'm seeing it feels sloppy and out of control.
Mm,
I don't have the precision, I guess, and I'm sure I'm wrong, and I love color.
mm.
How big is color to you in your work?
Huge. You
Mhm.
mean like in photography or just painting or
Let's go with photography.
the whole scope? I mean, yeah, it's so important. I mean, I things have to be post processed for me. I'm
Yeah.
never gonna take a JPEG out of the camera and call it a day. I'm
Mhm.
just not gonna do that. Um, I spend a lot of time like figuring out, how the color is gonna work.
Do you see it on set? Do you see it in the moment? Are you looking for those things when you're shooting?
No, because I can't.
Okay.
Either way, it doesn't matter. It's a variable I can't control. If I'm doing BTS on a set, I'm not gonna tell them to take something away because the color's off. I have to work with what I have.
Do you not for me, uh this will maybe be interesting for people to hear, but like I'll be in a very private situation, like
Mm,
obviously you're speaking of too, and I'll be shooting, and I know that when I'm back home, on the computer, right, i I know now what I don't like.
yeah.
I don't like seeing X, Y, and Z,
Mm,
right? So if I'm in a shot and I'm shooting, I will absolutely be shooting and go walk in, take that water bottle, just put it right on the ground, step back. Don't make it known that I'm doing anything. I'm not active that fast. Just wait it out, and then it's boom. I there's certain things that I will remove organically,
right,
right?
right.
Everyone saw me doing it, right? But I won't remove it in post because I feel like that moment it's there. But do you ever do that?
I do. I do.
Okay.
I
You'd be lying if you said you didn't. I know you.
Absolutely.
I know you now.
Absolutely. I think, I have my times too where if I don't do that in person, I'll use the spot healing tool. I mean,
Oh, okay.
it's there.
Okay, I'm more of a purist than you. I don't go there. I move on to a different photo. But I'll have my share of trying to slither in and remove or, yeah. Are you a fly on the wall type of person?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100% through and through. I never like to intervene or interrupt
Mhm.
when something's going on. And that plays in my favor sometimes, but at other times it doesn't. Like, especially when I'm out on the road, it's a different atmosphere.
Mhm.
It's very high energy. I can tap into that, but I can't sustain it for a very long
Okay.
time. So
Like imagine like you're waiting on a shot in the bus and Jelly's doing his thing and just like, "God, it's too profile. The moment's over. Jelly, boom, snap.
see,
You ever do that? Hey, Jelly. I think I did it with Jelly I mean, I do that when I've waited it out, the moment's out, never to inject into a moment. It's usually on the out, but I'm like, I didn't get what I wanted.
right.
And then I'm like, "Ugh, it's gone, it's moving. And T minus 1, 2, heck.
I mean, I'll be honest. I get scared sometimes.
And honestly, that's shit, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, being with the artist, I mean, people don't talk about it. It can be a scary experience. I mean,
Absolutely.
they carry an energy about them. They're very confident. And it's different working with the artist for sure.
Yeah.
And I feel like intervening just kind of puts me front and center, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, maybe I don't want that.
Yeah, he's back to introvert. No,
Yeah.
you definitely.
Like, I'm glad I'm here. I'm grateful I have this position, but I don't want to
Sure.
talk to anybody.
When you're shooting out there on that stage, like for me, like my style is again, like I like to be wide, but flattering wide,
Mm,
close enough to where I'm feeling the environment. Nobody's looking, it's like you're invading in the personal space zone. You're there for you're not peering in from but boy, you got to really put your ass out there.
There's a line though. There's always a line.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of the 28 millimeter. Like that is my go-to focal length.
Sure.
So I'm always in people's grill.
Yeah, me too.
But there's also you have to know when to pull back and when to push in too.
For sure.
I'm never going around backstage, or even like honestly for shows too. I don't really use a 70 to 200. I don't like that stage portrait. There needs to be context. What are they doing? Who are they with? Where are they at?
Where are they at? Yes. And there's a character to the wider, the 28, 24, 35. Oh my God, 35. If you can be on a prime, it's tough when you're live, but hey, in that zone, 35, 24, in that area, you're just feeling the character of it, and there's a point when you are too close for the moment or whatever the blocking is of the composition, but to do that, you have to get out front and center.
Yeah.
You have to get out into that crowd. You have to kind of be a member of that band.
Right.
You know, and that's
a whole thing too, just like setting foot on the stage. Like that's at first, when I first started doing events and shows, I was so put off by it. But now that I've been doing it for a little while, it's just become second nature. I kind of ignore the audience almost. I'm like, they're not there.
I'm stage work guy. I'm stage work, maybe 90% stage, 7% pit, and 3% I'll go out to the front of house, maybe if I can get there.
I'm a huge pit guy. I hog the pit. I love the pit.
Really? Okay. What's that? Because you just like being in the action. It's right over this and at both, and you're where all energy is culminating, right?
Yes, because it's right there in between the crowd and the artist. There's something going on in that little strip. I don't know what it is. I'm just very attracted to it.
That's cool. Yeah. That's cool. Are you? I normally don't get into gear, but I do want to talk about film. I mean, because that's what we talked about.
Yeah.
What are you rolling out there? You rolling with some film cameras? 1, 2, just what are you playing? Changing mags? Are you just dedicating one camera to one show and digital for the other? Because it's real ballsy of you if you're to just shoot a show on film.
I haven't done that yet. I'm not. I
was gonna say, are you shooting 15 clicks of a jelly on a Mamiya, bro? You got big balls, bud.
Well, so last year I was out with Chase Rice for a couple of months, and he actually shoots a lot of film. He shoots on Leicas a lot.
Yeah, he's a film guy.
We really connected on that level. And
see, that's great.
When I first got my Mamiya, I brought it out there. And we were at sound check, and I've got this huge thing around my neck, and he looks down and he's like, "What the hell is that?" And I'm like, "This is a medium format camera. You're probably not gonna know what that means."
But don't move because it's gonna, it's meant for portraits and such.
It's meant that way, but I treat it almost like a point and shoot. It's
really?
Yeah, I don't care. I love that thing. Like I started doing all the film work on 35. I still have my Contax G1.
Contacts, yeah.
Got the 28 mil and the 45.
A workhorse, like a military war camera right there. Yeah.
It's great though. I love it. But then I moved on to medium format, and
by the way, that was the same as the thing I said 20 minutes ago. Like when you get to that 16 mil and you step up to 35, you now know
it's a different feeling.
You ain't going back to that 35 game. You're you're on the 6.7. Right?
So the first time I ever shot medium format film, Zach is the one who helped me out. He let me use his Mamiya the first time, and I was on a professional shoot. It was my first time loading it, first time doing everything. First time developing 120, and it all came out perfect.
That's great. What was it for?
It was a cover shoot.
Oh, cool.
It was a cover shoot. It was BTS for music video. It was a lot of pressure, but I also had the 35 to back me up too. So I was like, The 120 doesn't turn out, and the 35 is going to be fine.
I like this owning of film.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like this for you. To be honest with you, it fits.
It
I'm seeing it all right now, man. The only thing I'm missing from you is like, you should have paint smudges all over you. Hey, I just came from the fucking studio. Did you just change last second?
Yeah. So I actually got a couple of paint marks on my
There we
pants
go.
before I came here.
There we go. Quick little fix.
Yeah.
You know, the thing about also with painting that interests me is knowing when to stop,
Yeah.
right? And that's something that I think people, even in photography, let's just call it post, you know, you can play with it till the cows come home. It's like knowing when to stop. But I really think that's something poignant in painting.
Mm.
It's like, when am I done with yellow? Does it need a strip? It's all so you,
Yeah.
you know? So where do you see yourself going business wise as a photographer? How are you thinking reps? Are you thinking more? Do you see yourself getting into spots, advertising kind of stuff?
I mean, I definitely want to keep doing the music stuff. I really love working with musicians. I mean, music is like second to visual art for me. Like I would say
Okay.
music is what fuels a lot of my inspiration.
Yeah.
Because music is abstract in itself. You can't see it. You can kind of,
Mhm.
get an idea.
Yeah.
So I definitely want to keep working in the music space.
Okay.
I feel like I haven't gotten to the point yet where I'm quite ready for representation.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's coming. It
That's
just
fair.
needs a little bit more time.
And what do you mean by more time? More time for you to learn the field, learn the business, to hone your craft, know what you want. What do you think more time before?
I think when I say more time, I'll always say more experience, but I guess I need more to work with
Mhm.
as far as like in the studio or even like on tour too. It's like I have a good portfolio now, but it's still not great. It's not a 25-year-old portfolio,
Do you think you need to wait 25 years to get that portfolio? Or is it, again, speaking of artist to artist, like it's one of our things, man, is to be where we are our own worst critic.
Right.
And a lot of the times you might not think you're ready to jump because you need the next thing to make the portfolio a little stronger, Okay, on the next one, I think that's something I've done my whole career, you know?
I always want the work to be great, not just good. I want it to be great. And if it's not in that perfect moment, I have a really hard time being like, okay, well, we can like start on these bigger things. I just feel like
see.
it always needs to be perfect. It doesn't need to be. That's something I need to work on. But that's just kind of where my head is at.
Yeah, the one thing I can say over the years of me with film and all that stuff is it's helped me be able to kind of reverse engineer styles, things some of the early work I've done I didn't really like, and I was just kind of mirroring what other people were doing.
Right.
But a lot of that film and it is such a process that you learn what you do and don't want.
Yes.
And because you're so invested in it, you really don't compromise.
Mm.
You know what I mean? To me, that's something that you own up. You want to own it.
Yeah.
Because it's not something you're learning just to throw away. It makes sense?
Yeah.
It's something that I've held on to. The film years for me are the blueprint to what I am now.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's where all the real labor occurred.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean it, a lot of it was motion. So it's a much more complex,
Significantly more
situation. But yeah, in photo, I mean, I kind of came into photo heavy in the digital, when I got into the professional side of photo, but most of my early videos were all film, so.
Do you miss it at all?
That's a great question. As I'm sitting here talking to you, yeah, I'm a bit envious of where you're at because I feel like I see your joy. Not that I'm not joyful in what I do, but I know where you're coming at it from.
Yeah.
There's a sense of wonder when you're doing it like you don't know what's around the corner.
W- Yeah, it's like, oh well, what if we try this? Oh,
Yeah.
like it works
There's
out.
that experiment in that finding your way,
Yeah.
because in digital and all that stuff, it's so immediate and so transactive. You can make adjustments and keep it moving.
Mm.
But I miss the mystique. There is a love affair to when your work is it's emotional.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do. I miss it. Um, from a business level, I don't.
Mm.
And so that's something I don't think I'm the type of person. The business side of what we do took a long time for me to get a handle on,
Mm.
because for so long I was the creative and it's all I was. I could just be creative and not think what if I would just go.
Right.
So a part of the business turning into what it has, where I have to be my own production company and therefore it is what it is,
Mm.
has taken naturally. Some of the joy turns into business and how to do things versus just, I say, being the kid in the room.
I feel like I'm so scared of kind of leaning into that place,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to say losing the creativity, but like losing myself within it too. I mean, yeah, do you have any advice for that?
Yeah. When I got into, that's why I asked the question earlier in my own way.
Mm.
But when I got into photo, I got into it because, no, and I shouldn't say got into, when I got back into shooting pictures and really, it was because the directing got so big,
Mm.
and it was so, if I had said green, by the time it got around, it would be a different color. If I said 5, it'd be 7. It's like I wanted more ownership
Right.
on it, right? Um, wait, where was I going with it? What was the question?
How to remain creative.
Yes,
Yeah.
but for me, I needed something to be more organic.
Right.
Needed something, so that to me is what helped the directing. I needed what you need. I needed that sub thing. So photo became more or less mm, I wanted it to be less complex.
Right.
It had to be that. I don't know if I answered the question. What was the question? What was the question?
It was just advice for
Yeah.
not losing creative energy.
Throughout whenever you're expanding more into the business side of things.
Yes, it did. It did. It naturally changed a lot.
Yeah.
Um, and I told myself that I would not let the photo be what the directing was.
Right.
I would make decisions differently. This
Mm.
is what I was asking about the painting, right? Based off of what I've been doing in directing, how can I keep the photography close,
Right.
and still make it a business?
Mm.
And that was, and I see it in you, holding on to what makes it beautiful for you. And for that, it's film. It's finding the clients that see what you need.
Mm.
Don't there's an understanding of compromise. Of course, you can understand what the clients might want. But as long as you're able to carve your lane and do what you want with the photo, then I would not be scared to get into that next level, because that's inherently what you're good at.
Right.
It's when you step into, like, I guess I need to, that's tough.
Yeah.
I'm here to ask any questions, um, transitioning from an artist where you're just the kid in the room,
Yeah.
to wearing the responsibility and making money moves or whatever. It will come.
Mm.
Uh, it's just a confidence thing, or once you feel like maybe it's your portfolio or it's something that you feel may be lacking, you'll hit it.
Yeah.
You know.
I feel like the business part has definitely it's gotten a lot further along than it was whenever I first started, but it's still not where it needs to
What
be.
part is hanging you up? Like the contracts, or it's just getting your work out there, or
I,
what to charge,
I think a lot of it
leaving money on the table?
is getting the work out there and people being interested enough in the work as well.
Mhm.
Um, Yeah, I think that's where I'm at right now. I mean, I get consistent work, but I want even more consistent work.
Mhm.
You know, it's like I want to be booked throughout the year
Sure.
and know exactly what I'm doing throughout that year. You know, whereas now it's more of like I don't want to say month by month basis on what I know I'm going to be doing,
I
but
know
I
what you
mean,
mean. I know what you
it's
mean.
there.
But do you think that now, do you think a rep or an agent fulfills that gap? Could fulfill that gap for you?
I think it could. Um, it's just finding the appropriate way to do that because I'm not very familiar with that world in Nashville.
Mm.
I feel like something like that would exist in somewhere like Los Angeles
Mhm.
or even New York.
Sure.
But are the right people in Nashville like here for me? I don't know.
Mhm. But you can also see yourself traveling to LA, right? And snapping there and hiring the crews and doing the big boy stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
You're ready.
I there's something about that that's very appealing to me, but it's also like kind of scary too, you know?
Yeah, but lean into the unknown, right? That's
Right.
also the joy of being an artist,
The
right?
unknown, dude, that's been like circling back around with me for like the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, but live in that. I
Yeah.
mean, truly, that's where, as an artist, you feel alive.
Mm.
I've often used an analogy of like a frog on a lily pad, and moving from one lily pad to the next. But man, it's the swimming in the water that's the juice.
You don't know, you
That's
know.
the best art.
Yeah.
When you get on the lily pad, you're just doing what you do, but it's the grinding and getting and living in the fear and when things are trying to take you out and you're still going to that spot. That's where I see you going, bud. I see you taking, I mean, I love the passion that you have towards film. It's really cool. I wouldn't lose that for a second. I see you. Thank you for taking a moment to come out here and share your story.
Yeah, man. I'm really glad I could be here.
Yeah, dude, I enjoy your work, and like I said earlier, I see a lot in it. So I'm excited to see where you're headed, bud.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, dude.